Welcome back to Torah on the Go. Whether you are on your Peloton working out or walking your dog or taking a break from work, we are glad that you are joining us. This week we'll focus on the very last verse, Exodus chapter 40, verse 38, the very last verse of the book. I think one of the most beautiful verses in the entire Torah. Ki anan Adonai al hamishkan yomam ve'eshti alayla bo le'inei kol beit Yisrael bechol masehem. For the cloud of God would be on the tabernacle by day, and fire would be on it by night, before the eyes of all of the house of Israel in all of their journeys. As a screenwriter, I hear that verse, and I think the only thing that can be written after that is the end, fade out.
Roll credits.
Roll credits, exactly.
Right.
So we do fade out of Exodus, and we roll right into another book immediately the following week.
But a very different book.
A very different book.
Right.
A very different book. And so what does this ending mean to you? What's the significance? How does it sum up the entire experience of the book of Exodus, which is so vast? I mean, it spans from Joseph and the brothers and slavery and suffering and the rise of a savior and God revealing God's self and the plagues and liberation and revelation at Sinai and all of it, the tabernacle, and we're here. What do we learn from this based on this sentence that God was with us in all of our journeys?
Yes, that's a wonderful question. The books of the Bible, as you well know, get their names in the most arbitrary way. The tradition decided whatever the first significant word in the first line was, that's the name of the book. So the first book of the Bible is Breshit because that's the first word in the beginning. The second book of the Bible, the one we've been learning this year, in English we call it Exodus because its major event is the Exodus from Egypt. But in Hebrew the book is called Shemot because the first line says, Ve'elu Shemot b'nei Yisrael. These are the names of the children of Israel who came out of Egypt, who came down to Egypt with Jacob. Shemot, names. This is a book of our identity. This is the book that determines who we are as a people. So the two events that really shape us as a people, the Exodus for the slavery and Exodus from Egypt, Passover, the revelation of Mount Sinai, Shavuot, are the two principal events in this book. And as we've talked about these last weeks, these last 15 chapters deal with the creation of the Mishkan, with the creation of a tabernacle, of a shrine, that in which God comes with us on our journeys. So who are we? We are the people who were slaves and then saw freedom. We are the people who stood at Mount Sinai and committed ourselves to a covenant. And we are the people who travel the world, who walk the world with God. And the last line says exactly that. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, God is with you. There's a cloud protecting you by day. Remember, in the desert, having a cloud over you is a good thing because the sun isn't beating down on you. And at night, when it's dark and you're afraid, there's a light that you can look up to. So this is the answer to the question that was asked at the beginning. Who are you? Who is this people? Remember, when Moses comes to Pharaoh and he says, the God of the Hebrews wants you to let the people go, Pharaoh's question is, well, who is this God? And the answer at the end of the book is, this is the God that protects this people. This is the God who has raised this people and taught this people. And this is the God who, no matter how bad we are, and God, are we bad sometimes, this is a God who won't let us go.
And so we conclude the book of Exodus this week after spending 30 weeks talking about it, just like we spent 30 weeks talking about Genesis last year, 30 weeks talking about Exodus. One of the most powerful comments on the entire Torah and commentary actually isn't by Rashi, isn't by Rashbam, isn't by Ibn Ezra. For me, it's a question posed by the Lebovitz Rebbe in Genesis chapter 12. Abraham and Sarah get to the land, and he says, why doesn't the Torah simply end here? Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful question because it means, deep in his drush on that is, well, what is left? What else is the Torah? If the Torah is not about just us trying to get to the land of Israel, what was the Torah trying to teach us? Here, the question is after 30 weeks of Exodus, and I agree with everything you've said in terms of all of the lessons of Exodus. After this beautiful verse, and my inclination that we should just fade out, the end. Go back to Genesis, go back to creation.
Roll credits.
Why do we move on? What's left for us to learn as a people that's not discussed in Genesis and Exodus?
Because the question is now, how do you live? In Exodus 19, we were told, Mamlechet Kohanim v'Goy Kadosh. You will be a holy people. You will be a sanctified people. You'll be a priestly people, as it were. How do you do that? How do you live that life? And how do I live that life given at the same time the reality of my humanity? And my humanity in all of its difficulty, in all of its conflicts, and all of its desires and impulses and reflexes. How do I live a life which is worthy of having God living in my neighborhood, having God living among my people? How do you maintain the flame? How do you maintain the godly presence within this people? And that's what we don't know yet. We were given a set of laws in the middle of this book, but they were very varied, and they were loose, kind of social and some religious laws. But really, the whole pattern of holiness has yet to be established for us.
And we don't know. We have the first Jewish institution, the Mishkan, but we don't know how to get it to work.
Yeah, well, Moses turns it on. That's
Right.
what this story is
The
really
very
about.
end of the chapter.
He switches it on and God shows up. Remember when I was a kid in an electric shop in 7th grade, I built myself a radio. And, the idea was you brought it to the teacher, plugged it in and turned it on. And I swear to God, prayer worked because I didn't wire the thing very well. I was afraid I'd electrocute somebody. And I turned it on and I prayed, Lord, and it worked.
Yeah.
It works. This Mishkan works. In other words, this pattern of creating a people that is a godly people, it actually shows a glimmer of actually being able to happen.
So Vayikra is about how we actually how we function within this setting of the Mishkan, right? Mm-hmm. What are the rules of the Mishkan working in terms of facilitating community and facilitating divinity in our midst? Bamidbar is a continuation of the narrative to get us to the wrong side of the Jordan River, to get us to the end of Moses' life, and then Deuteronomy is Moses' farewell address. Deuteronomy is Moses' goodbye.
Stay tuned. There's 3 more books of the Torah. We're not done.
There's at least 3 more seasons.
Yes, right.
And I would tell you that without this season, we wouldn't have a narrative that binds us as a people.
Right.
That's what this season is about.
Right. Who are we? It's the identity. It's the identity statement.
So we have moved from Bnei Yisrael to Am Yisrael. We've moved from the children of Israel to the nation of Israel. We've moved from a people that has no trust in Moses to a people who has minimal trust in Moses.
They're getting there.
They're getting there. And some days we have more trust than others. And more than anything, we're going to witness over the course of the next 3 books a change in the guard of the generations, right? The generation that walks out of Egypt, that's in this book, that's going to be condemned to die in the desert, that generation, right? Mm-hmm. It makes a mistake perhaps even greater than the mistake of the golden calf. It makes a mistake, and its children are going to have to be raised in the desert,
right,
in order to enter the promised land.
Look, at the beginning of Genesis, let's go back to your wonderful question about the Genesis, right? Genesis 12. God says to Avram, Lech lecha me'artzecha, leave home, follow me.
Right.
Then he says to him, I'll make a covenant with you and your offspring. What Shemot comes in, what Exodus comes in and tells us is, it's not a question of how you were born. It's a question of whether you adopt the narrative, right? It's a very powerful question, really. If Genesis is right, I have to be born as the progeny of Abraham. If Exodus is right, I become the progeny of Abraham whenever I tell the story of the Exodus, of the covenant, whenever I aspire to live as a holy people. The fact that God shows up here at the end of the book. And remember, the people are not all Israelites. There's all Erev Rav. There's a whole bunch of interesting people that came out of Egypt with us. And yet they're all focused on this place. They're all watching this. And they're all going to be included in the community of those who are ready to accept God and to become this holy people. So it's really going to be, the book of Genesis says you have to be born into this. The book of Exodus means you have to live it. And if you live it, you deserve it. And if you deserve it, you can call yourself part of the people of Abraham. So it's a change in identity.
And in fact, to become Jewish today, you can choose both paths.
Well, most
Right?
of us consider ourselves both.
Right, but I'm
Right,
saying
yeah.
a person is born into our people, or when someone converts, they accept the narrative of our people.
Right.
And so, yes, we aspire that people who are born also accept the narrative of our people, but those are the two options in terms of entering our people.
Right. And of course, there's a dynamic here. We're on the road.
Right.
The book of Exodus begins in Egypt. We are settled in Egypt. The book of Exodus ends, we're on the road. We are a moving people. We are moving from Egypt to the promised land. And that becomes the ultimate picture of our history. This is a metaphor for Jewish history. It's a metaphor for our model of human history, that the whole world is on the road between the house of bondage and the promised land, between a place of oppression and a place of liberation and redemption. And redemption is ahead. And the question is, how do we move forward? How do we move forward? And here is this God who comes to be with us and says, I'm not going to take you there immediately because you have to make the journey, but I'm not going to let go of you as you make the journey. The journey is going to get you there, but it's going to be fraught with difficulties. But at night, you can look up and see the fire. I will always be here.
I think that when you end the book of Genesis and we stand as a community and we say chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek, be strong, let us draw strength from Torah. I always find it to be a little bit ironic because we know at the end of the book of Genesis that what we're going to open up the Torah to the following week is terrible.
Right. We've fallen off a cliff.
We've fallen off a cliff, right? That's
Right.
exactly right.
Right.
But when you stand up at the book of Exodus, when you stand up at the end of the book and you say chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek, there's really a great deal of strength and pride that should be found in that statement.
Right.
Because we do end the book of Exodus at such a strong point that God is with us in all of our journeys. It's such an encouraging statement that because it's not about the journeys that were, it's about the journeys that exist forever and ever and ever.
Right. We're on the journey.
And so we're on that same journey, the same journey the children of Israel were on thousands of years ago. And that's why in the Passover Seder we say, Avadim Hayinu, we were slaves, but we act today, this night is the Seder, we tell their story because we're part of that story.
Yeah.
Their journey is our journey.
But it's a journey. And I think it's important to recognize it's not the same. You're right. It's not the same anticipation of what happened in Genesis, but what's ahead is not easy.
Right.
What's ahead is not easy because we have to confront two major things. We have to confront the dangers out there, and we have to confront the dangers within. And those dangers, the ones out there and the ones within, are still with us. That's the great journey. In Western literature, the road is the most common metaphor.
Right.
Because the road story, Dorothy's on the road in Wizard of Oz. The Odyssey of Homer is the road story. Chaucer is a road story. Bunyan is a road story. Jack Kerouac is a road story, right? It's all road
Twain,
stories.
right.
You're right. Twain is a road story.
Right.
They're all road stories because the road is a reference to the inner development of the character. Dorothy's on the yellow brick road because she's becoming an adult. Right. She's becoming a fully formed, realized human being. We are on the lehevech. We are on the lavdil. We are on the road because we are becoming a people, and we're trying to figure out what it means to move from being slaves to being fully free and fully realized human beings. It ain't easy.
No,
it's not an easy road.
And we're still figuring it out.
And we're still on the road.
We're still figuring it out. We're still part of the journey. And no matter how you enter this world and how you end this world, you leave this world, your journey helps the journey, our collective journey of our people.
Right. And the assurance at the end of the book in that last verse is that we're not alone in this journey.
Right. That's exactly right. And so we're grateful that you've journeyed with us for the last 30 weeks and spent time learning the book of Exodus with us and reflecting with us. I want to thank you for all of the notes of encouragement from so many of you who have written to both Rabbi Feinstein and myself, telling us how much this podcast means to you. And we look forward to learning with you next season.
Have a wonderful summertime.